Hey everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. It is the Monday the 25th of September. And yeah, it's been a while since I've streamed last. I think it was like a little over 24 hours, like 36 hours since I last streamed. But if you were paying any attention to that, we had Matt Estella on the stream recently, just on this past Sunday morning, and it was super fun. It was really great, and somebody just asked of what the song's playing tonight on the Discord server. That's funny. I don't know. I got it through a let's see. I got it through thing called like endemic sound or something like that. It's like royalty free music. Anyways, I don't know. I could probably look it up. I could give you a link to what they are. Anyways, yeah, so we had Matt Estella on Sunday, which for me was 7 a.m., which was really early, but there was a lot of people here and it was really great. A lot of good conversation. So that was super cool. And yeah, so we'll it's just a huge thanks to Matt, obviously, for being a part of that. That was super cool. And yeah, we'll kind of see how, see if there's any more, guests and things like that coming up in the future. I know that Mark Fancher was saying that he wanted to come back on again. I know he was in the chat couple, like maybe last month, and was like, "Hey, we should do this again." So yeah, we've got some hopefully some more cool guests coming up soon, and just obviously more Houdini in general. Oh, the artist is ELFL. There you go. Cool. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm sure I could have looked that up or did know that at some point, but anyways, hey KG, how's it going? Yeah, so tonight we're going to be talking. Well, I guess maybe they'll owe me some royalties for like promotion or something. I don't know. Maybe I can get a little kickback from them. Just kidding. But yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about MOPs and Vellum. It should be really interesting because what we've been doing mainly is talking about how to either modify your geometry going into a sim, or just modifying point attributes inside of a simulation. Maybe it's an RBD sim. I think we've mainly done. We did a little bit with soft like Vellum type stuff, but this will really be talking a bit more about modifying constraints and things like that. The stuff that can be a little tricky to kind of nail down. We're going to use MOPs Plus tonight. Hopefully it'll show you really kind of some of the benefits of going out and doing that. Obviously you could set that stuff up on your own if you have, the experience and knowledge to be able to kind of go into that. We're not going to be building, these MOPs nodes from scratch. Obviously that's the whole point of it. So, if you're watching something, you're like, darn, like, I'd really like to, be able to do that in DOPS. Consider MOPs Plus. I'm not getting I'm getting no kickbacks from Henry or anything like that from MOPs. I'm just a user, and I think it's pretty cool. And so yeah, it's a really cool tool set, and hopefully you'll see some of the neat uses of it in the dynamic context. There is also a really good video that Henry put out on the MOPs YouTube channel, and so check that out. I was just kind of watching that just to kind of brush up on some of how he was kind of going about it, how he recommended to do it. So take a look at that video as well. There might be some stuff from that I'm kind of pulling and doing some similar type things, but hopefully it'll, I won't be repeating too much stuff. We're also going to talk a little bit about Vellum grains here. I actually had a conversation. Hey, Frecteller, yeah, everything's good. Oh, taking a little break from Unreal. Yeah, come on back over into the Houdini camp. Come on in. But yeah, so I actually had somebody reach out to me today at one point and just say, hey, I'm doing this like vellum thing with cloth and grains and stuff like that. How would you go about doing that? So I think what we're going to do is take a quick look at some grains just on their own and just kind of talk about, how you would maybe modify those things using the MOPs tool sets and how that could, how that might be beneficial for you. And then from there, we'll, maybe look at some other examples and things like that. Also, if you have questions or anything like that during the stream, please feel free to drop them in the chat. This is not me saying this is the only way to do this thing. There's quite a few different ways to be able to kind of go about and manage and make these things happen. So I'm just showing you some ways maybe that work. Hey, thanks, Gore. Welcome to the stream. Thank you. So yeah, these aren't, this is obviously, I'm never going to be, proclaiming to be the only person that knows how to do X, Y, or Z. This is just a way. And if you guys have better ways, please drop them in chat. I know even during when we had Matt on yesterday, I know some people were jumping in and saying, hey, this is maybe a better way of doing that or a more efficient way. And so it was really interesting because then that actually, even though, yes, it was a more efficient way, and that's true, it led us into a really cool conversation about what's the purpose of what Matt's doing and why was he doing, why does he sometimes do the things the way he does them? And what's the benefit, simplification, just a lot of really cool conversation. So check that conversation out as well. Really interesting stuff to kind of see how his thought process works and just some different ideas that he had about, yeah, backseat drivers is very, very welcome here. I'll just say I'm almost a backseat driver. So if you guys have other things here, I've got the control panel in front of me, but if you guys have stuff that you think I should be doing or, have questions or thoughts or anything like that as we're kind of going through these things, please feel free to drop those in the chat. Those are great comments to be able to either pick up on and kind of go from there, or just be able to stop and, just kind of address something right as we're going. So just a standard caveat that I make, before these, before kind of diving into this stuff. But yeah, hopefully this will be an interesting little exploration into, into MOPs and Vellum, and then we'll kind of, we'll see where we get to exactly today. I've got a few things that I'd like to do, and if you guys have questions or thoughts or anything that you'd like to go off into, please let me know. But all right, let's jump on over to Houdini and start going. So the first thing I want to talk about is working with cloth, like vellum cloth, and adjusting constraints and stuff, right? So let's first do that and kind of see where that gets us and kind of go from there. So let's move this down a little. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is do the geometry. That's what I'm going to do first. And let's just say, geez, I'm having a hard time typing tonight. All right, so let's first do some vellum cloth. Let's drop down the planar patch. And yeah, it's a good enough angle to have it in, I guess. Looks good to me. Let's do the top seam, which I think is going to be the actual top seam here because this is the orientation that it started in here. Looks good. How big is this? This is a meter. Let's make it maybe a little bigger. Sure, cool. Let's do a vellum configure cloth. Drop that down. So now this is going to make this into a cloth object, or give it the properties to for the vellum solver to see this as a cloth object, right? There is no such thing as a cloth like primitive or anything like that. We have just attributes that are defining this. So we've got vellum cloth. Let's do the vellum solver here. Give that a second to just kind of initialize. Cool. If we hit play, this should just fall straight down. Yep, sure did. All right, so then let's pin some points here. Let's do, let's just say square cloth. We'll just call this square cloth, right? Because that's going to make this patch name square cloth, and then the top seems square cloth top, whatever. I think that's what it was. Yeah. So there's square cloth top. If we go to this node here and just make sure we're selected on it, we'll see that these get pinned up at the top here. So these, or it has like a little visualization of where it's going to get pinned. So those are now pinned in the Vellum attributes. And so now this is just going to kind of sit there like so. So that's cool. I'm actually going to make these triangles a little smaller because I want to be able to kind of mess with this a little bit more. So let's maybe cut this in half. Yeah, that looks good. So one thing to remember is that, you know, when you have cloth that has a higher resolution, it can be harder for the solver to kind of resolve that state, right? So that's why it's more saggy here, and that's why we're getting this stretchier situation. If we up the sub steps, we should see this start to become less less stretchy, right? Because this really isn't a stretchy cloth, but because there's more points, it's harder for it to kind of keep it in that perfectly square orientation, right? So there we go. There's our cloth, and you can see it's basically just hanging there, right? So that's good. Should be totally fine. All right. So we've got this cloth, and we want to start doing stuff to it, right? We want to start tweaking it and moving it around and stuff, right? Well, if you remember when we were talking about Vellum, right, we want to do this on the constraint geometry. So let's do that there, because what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the, let's just chuck a null down here, and we want to do it here on this constraint geometry. And so what we can do here is let's do a MOPs. Let's do a MOPs noise fall off here, right? So let's do this. We'll just grab a noise fall off. This is going to be working on points, right? So we're going to have point attributes here. If we preview this, we're going to see that, right? So this is fine. The only thing that we need to remember is that these constraints are actually primitives, right? So these are things that we need to transfer over, right? So I'm going to make this maybe a little bigger now. So we've got these attributes here, and this is all good. So let's maybe just adjust this a little bit more. Let's tweak the frequency. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe we just give it a little. Are we actually changing this, or are these colors not changing? Interesting. Okay, that's what we want to do. I'm going to turn it on to fit. So this should be good. I just want to kind of adjust this noise maybe a little bit here. So these will be places, this will be kind of the pattern that we're going to bunch this up, right? So cool, we've got our noise fall off here, right? So we're previewing our fall off. We can do it like that. We're just using noise, nothing crazy. Not doing anything really else beyond that. Let's also then, let's do a MOPs shape fall off. Let's do this as well. What we'll do is we'll set this to be, let's do this in spherical mode. And let's set this, instead of set, let's do it at multiply, right? Let's preview the fall off from here, right? So now we're actually going to be adding that in wherever these constraints are, wherever we're changing those, we're multiplying this shape against the noise pattern, right? So we're actually keeping the section that's within this shape. But actually, as I'm thinking about this and kind of playing through this in my mind, let's actually just do this with the noise first, and then we'll add this in. So we'll just slide that over the side. And like I said, we need to promote this up to a primitive attribute. So let's do that. So let's do an attribute promote. We're going to take MOPs fall off. We'll take it from a point, go to a primitive. Now it should be over here. We have a MOPs fall off there. Perfect. It's just going to average them. So if 2 points have similar or have, slightly different values, it's just going to average them together. And that'll give us our MOPs fall off. So if we go into here, hit I and visualize this, there we go. We've got our MOPs fall off. And I believe if we turn this off, we can see how this changes a little bit, right? Because this is basically, we're coloring it based on a point attribute. So it's allowed to be a gradient across that primitive. When we promote this up, you can see that each primitive has its own specific color because we're visualizing a primitive attribute. So this is what we're going to actually be adjusting here. Using this within our the rest lengths and things like that of these constraints. So we've got this solver here. It's not going to do anything different right now, right? So we need to actually have that be applied to the actual geometry, to the actual constraint geometry. So let's do this. Let's come into the Vellum solver here. And then if we take a look here, we've got our, yep, there it is, MOPs plus. We can do a couple different things here. Let me think. I think what we need to do is do this one. Sorry, just kind of thinking here. Nope, wrong one. So what we can do is do MOPs plus modifier fetch attribute. That's what we want. So I think we want to do it over here because it's going to go into the forces. All right. So we're grabbing our source attribute MOPs fall off, destination attribute MOPs fall off. Now nothing is animating here. So the good thing is that this is actually just going to come in anyways. So if we look at our constraint geometry here, we have our MOPs fall off with or without this, right? Because we just have a static, attribute that's coming in. So nothing is changing here. It's not going to calculate anything with that, right? So let's just cut that off for a second. And let's do I'm just trying to think of the best way of doing this here. Let's do a Vellum constraint properties. And so what we can do really easily here is, well, first of all, we want to make sure that we're applying this just to our stretch and not the bend constraints. So if we go back up here and look at this, we can see that there should be groups coming out of this. So we have a stretch and a bend. So let's make sure that we're only applying this to our stretch. And what we can do is take this, this rest length scale and basically we can use that to kind of change how these constraints are kind of living in this simulation, right? So what we can do is we can actually turn this Vexpression on, and this will be just a couple lines of Vex that has to be written. It's really pretty straightforward. And what we'll do is we'll do the rest length scale here. And just as a reminder, you can set any of these properties, any of these parameters from a Vexpression if this is an option. So what we do is we set, in this case, the parameter is called rest scale. So if we set rest scale equal to something in our Vexpression, that is going to be what it, takes on. So if we were to do, let's do this first, and then we'll kind of play around with remapping some of these attributes and getting this exactly where we want it. So what we'll do is we'll do rest length. I think that was what we were looking for, rest length. Here, yep, or no, rest scale, sorry, rest scale equals, and then we'll just do at MOPs fall off. I think we're going to have a little issue here as I'm kind of thinking through this, but that's okay. We're going to kind of walk through this and why it's doing stuff that's good and why it's doing stuff that's bad. So, yep, kind of totally freaked out, right? because what we ended up doing was, first of all, we put a ton of energy into this system. The other thing that we did was some of these have a scale of 1, others have a scale of 0, right? So we actually do want to remap that a little bit. So let's just come back over here, and in our remap, let's change the output minimum and the output maximum. Let's do the output minimum to be like, let's do half, like 0.5 or something like that, right? So now we have, we do have these kind of hard edges to it, but it's only going to go down to a half. And if we look here, we've got our, right here, we have our MOPs fall off. It looks like it's going from 0.5 to 1, and there's, some values in between. So let's try that out now and see how that works, because in that case, we were just setting it directly equal to what the MOPs fall off was. So that's going to put a lot of energy into it. And yeah, it's definitely like curling up, kind of doing its thing, but we're just putting way too much energy just in that first initial kind of burst, right? That's why it's jumping like crazy, because we're going from completely kind of relaxed and at rest to throwing a ton of energy into it, and it's going kind of crazy. So let's kind of dial that in and make that a little bit better over time. So what we can do is we can do our, let's now fetch in this as an animated attribute, right? Because if we bring this in animated here, this is now going to be rewriting this MOPs fall off that we created in there, right? So as we're bringing this in, this is fetching the attribute, then we can just use this to define, that rest scale is being set to that, right? So that's great. That should be working. We're going to be going from our destination geometry is going to actually be not geometry, but if we go up here to initialize and set this to constraints, this is going to set it to what we want it to be: primitives and constraint geometry, right? Because we want to be modifying our constraint geometry on our Vellum, and we want it to be running over primitives because that's where all these attributes live. So that's where we want that to go. So the other thing we want to do is make a SOP that we can kind of point to here. So let's just do this. We'll just add a null in here and call this constraints. And let's dive back inside here. And let's go up. Oops. Let's find that constraints node. There it is. Accept. All right, great. Now we're pulling from the right place. We're running it over our primitives and putting it to the constraint geometry. And again, like I said, using this initialize up at the top is really helpful because it's going to make sure it's working just on our constraints. We can specify the group stretch here. We don't have to particularly do that, but I guess it's probably best practice to just say, let's just only operate on our stretch constraints. So this isn't going to change anything yet. So if we still play this, it's going to shoot all that energy in there. It's going to be too much, right? It's going to be way too much. I'm going to hide the ghosting there. Oops. Why is that still showing? Looks like we got a little hiccup there. Yeah. Okay. So just reset the viewport and we're good. Okay. So we still have too much energy coming in. So let's go back up here. Let's grab our shape fall off here. And what we can do with this is let's first of all make this a little smaller. Let's make it like something like that, right? And let's animate this guy. So if we hit enter, let's just slide this over like so. I'm going to turn off the brain here so that we've got some, we've got a little bit of time here. So let's middle click on this, slide this over to 24. And then let's maybe bring that across to like 96 to go across like this. And just kind of see what this starts to do. I'm going to change our time frame to 120 down here. And so now that's kind of what's happening here. And maybe what we'll do also is we'll just scale this up a little bit in Y, just so that it's a little taller as well. So we'll get a little bit more of this like random kind of bunching in here, right? So this is good, right? So we're starting to get some animation here. But if we think about what's happening, all of our rest lengths are actually set to like basically nothing here, right? They're set to 0 or 0.5, right? So what we actually want to do is we're going to want to do let's do a remap fall off here at the end. So we've got both of these here. They're both kind of doing their own thing, but we want to remap this fall off so that it's actually kind of following within a value that we're looking for. And we can look at the points actually if we want to visualize this here, because this is obviously where this is being written to. So what we want is for these blue areas to act, the areas that are 0 right now, we actually want that to be 1, right? And the areas that are 0, we want to be 0.5. So we just want to invert those basically, because we don't want it to go, we don't want it to go to 0 when there's nothing. We want it to stay at 1. And then as this moves across, we want to just remap this. So this is a simple remap here. So we've got a noise that's creating the noise. We've got the shape fall off that's basically just creating this little look for us here. And then we've got our remap fall off here. So what we could do as well, I guess if I'm thinking about this just kind of on the fly, we could do it this way where this is 1 and this is 0, right? I think this would work. No, that doesn't, because we're multiplying. Yep. Anyways. So noise fall off. Make sure that's right. Okay, cool. Yep. All right, great. So now let's take a look at this and see how this works. This shouldn't do anything crazy at the beginning, right? No, nothing. Okay, we're getting something here, but it's not exactly doing what I want it to. So let's see if I've missed something in here. So this should just be for the stretch constraints. And let's visualize on this output here. We can say maybe stretch ratio. We can take a look at this and see if this is actually doing what we want it to. I know what the issue is. We need to do this based on the ID attribute. Match by attribute, ID. That's the problem. So this is part of the issue here. We want to be able to be matching that by an attribute, which is ID. So in this case, I don't think we have an ID over here. We don't. So let's just do that. We'll enumerate this. Just set these to ID. That should be good. Should be happy. There we go. I was going to say that didn't make any sense. Why did it do it that way? So now we're getting this cloth that's actually pinching kind of as we go across, right? We're getting this kind of weird, very bizarre looking animation, right? It's definitely really strange. You can see it's kind of like crinkling, it's crinkling itself up in the middle there as it goes across. But this is sort of what we're trying to drive this with right here. We're able to animate this across, able to get, some nice little, details and things like that. And obviously the more detail that you have in your cloth, the more interesting little bits and pieces you're going to be able to get. But also, you've got tons of control here, right? You've got stuff of nightmares. Yeah. So, it's kind of just crazy things that you could do, right? So you could do all sorts of different stuff here, right? Where you could do just instead of a shape fall off here, we could get rid of this for a second. We could do a MOPs plane fall off. right? Which is just kind of like a plane fall off is in like something like cinema. We could set this to be in multiply as well. And what we could do here is we'll preview the fall off there. And if we change this, right, we could just animate this, right? So we could say 24. Let's set that there. Let's do this to 48. We'll do a fall off value of 1 here and animate that. So this is just going to kind of animate that in, right? So now we can remap this and we'll see that that's kind of at 0 to 1. So that's cool. It's doing what we want it to. And now if we simulate this, we're not going to have it just kind of pinching across. We're going to have it go through the entire thing is just going to kind of slowly pull in like that, right? So that's a different look, right? That's a totally different look and feel. Maybe on the minimum end, it's too low. So we could do something like 0.75. And we could even do something like 1.25 on the high end. And so we could actually do this. Oh, it adds in a bit more there, but right. Cause when it's 0, it's going to go to it's going to go to 1.25, but that is an option as well, where you could do something like this, right? Where it's kind of pinching and actually allowing it to be bulging a little bit as well. You could also do something, let's see here. Oops, set that to 1. Let's just see what this looks like with just 7.75 and 1. Yep, that's just like kind of the global option there. So this is a plane fall off, but let's also do something maybe more interesting. Let's do a spread fall off. And what we need is a point cloud, right? So let's do this. Let's grab a couple of add node. Let's do an add node here. And we'll just grab a couple of points that we can use, basically. So let's just control template that, and let's go. Oops. Let's go into here. We'll go to the add, and we'll just add in a couple of points, maybe 3. And I'm just going to kind of move these around. So we'll put one up there, maybe one down here, and then one over there. So there's a few different points. So let's do a spread fall off here. We'll put this into multiply mode and turn that off. Cool. And so what we should see here is, let's make sure we preview fall off. Cool. Let's see if that's going to grow. Okay. I missed something here. What did I miss? Oh, animate based on connectivity. All right, well, let's just see if I can do this. Select some here. That's weird. I thought that would work properly. Oh, there it is. That's what I've got to animate. The spread. Hey, all right. Connectivity. I'm just not sure why this reference frame is changing. Yeah, I don't think it really matters. Yeah, there we go. So we can do that. We can add in some fall off width, add in maybe a little bit of noise there to it. All right, cool. Now we're getting somewhere. All right, sorry about that. And there we go. We've got a little spread going on there. Cool. So we can animate this, maybe from 24 up to 96. Give it a spread of, oh, interesting. I guess 2. No, not quite. Where does it stop? There we go, 1.6. All right, so let's solve that and see what that looks like. Should be, obviously, I think pretty understandable how this is going to look and work, but so yeah, there you go. Got a little weird crinkly type situation there. And one interesting thing, actually Henry was talking about on his stream, was that if you wanted to do something like this with some velocity damping, you will probably get some more kind of, I don't know, like ethereal type movements and things like that. Now, obviously, the way that it animates is going to be, still crinkling, right? It's still animating in more or less the same way. However, it's going to bleed out some of those extra velocities, so it's going to be a little bit more just kind of floaty. It's not going to be quite as, like, I don't know what the word is, like smooth or whatever, but the velocity damping can do some interesting things to be able to kind of bleed velocity out of the system. And if you wanted to get rid of something like gravity, you could do that as well, and probably have some interesting, zero out the gravity and get some interesting animation or whatever here, because now this is just going to kind of move around almost as if it's in, in a vacuum or whatever. So it's not going to be pulled down per se. And this is going to kind of make it a bit more floaty even, and a bit more, whatever. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can take this and kind of make this your own, make it interesting, do something with it, right? I know that Henry had a cool example that he did on his tutorial kind of series. Hey, Terry, well, welcome. It's MOPs Monday. Welcome. Yeah, we're going a little earlier now, so yeah, sometimes you might forget about it, but I'm glad that you're here. Welcome. So yeah, so doing all of these different, little tweaks and stuff like that can actually make it so that it's a bit softer of a animation. So if you're going for something that's a bit abstract and a bit otherworldly, this might really be something interesting to do. And as you kind of crank this up, it's going to get even more kind of drifty, and like it's in this like thick something, I don't know. It's kind of like what the Vellum brush does, which I hadn't really thought about too much before, but the Vellum brush has a lot of damping in it, so that as you pull it, it's like it's being dragged through water or something like that, right? So yeah, you can kind of play around with this as however you'd like, but I think you can see how this technique is pretty straightforward really to work with. Like there's a couple little gotchas here and there, right? There's, you can do all sorts of different things here, right? You can do different types of fall offs to make this work. Any and all of these will do kind of the same thing. So let's just look at what this shape fall off looks like now as we kind of let that roll through. Yeah, see, this is already a lot less intense, because we're basically just we've killed the gravity, right? So this is just kind of this like 0G like pinching effect now. And with the velocity damping, we're not going to allow for velocities to kind of propagate and travel and be kind of introduced in the system as much. So So yeah, you can get all sorts of interesting effects just by taking these properties and kind of tweaking them and stuff like that. So obviously there's a ton of parameters to change and we're not going to go through all of them, but hopefully this is making some sense to everybody. I know it can be a little, there's some subtle things that you have to do here, right? Like, so just as just to kind of recap, like this fetch attribute is basically grabbing the MOPs fall off and bringing it in every frame into the dynamics context. And then this Vellum constraint properties is basically allowing us to just set the rest scale equal to MOPs fall off. We could actually do this very similar thing in here with expressions, right? However, there's really in my mind, not a great reason to do that, just because it kind of puts it into this whole world of like code that you have to kind of deal with, right? Whereas if you're in this constraint property here, this is really straightforward and simple, and we kind of just know what's happening here. This is just the MOPs fall off is equaling rest scale. If you didn't want to do the remap here, you could do the remap here as well. There's a remap option as well. So you could do that right there. So there's a lot of different ways that you can obviously go about doing this. Whatever feels most appropriate to you, that's great. If sitting in here and tweaking those, like if you're not sure about the rest length value and you want to be able to remap them in here while you're simulating, great. That's probably the best spot for you to be able to do that. So maybe that makes more sense for you. There's a ton of different options for you, right? The other thing that I want to touch on here, let's actually make a copy of this, and we're gonna we'll say MOPs anim fall off. Let's just look at what this would look like if we were doing our animated like constraint adjustment in dynamics itself. So I don't think we would need any of this. Let me just think. I don't think so. I'm just going to get rid of this stuff here because we shouldn't need this for right now. Just do this. All right, so we've got our cloth. It should still be hanging the way it was before. Oh, something's angry. Oh, right. There's stuff inside of it that's not happy. That's the problem. All right, so let's just take this out of here. Our constraint, we'll leave that. Let's do a MOPs noise fall off here. Wire that in. Let's preview that fall off. And we need to initialize this to constraints, right? This is the same issue here. We want it to be running over our constraint geometry here instead of our actual just standard geometry. Sorry, just needed a little splash of water there. Okay, so we're running over our constraint geometry, not our regular geometry. So we should be able to preview the fall off. Now we shouldn't see anything on frame 0, but hopefully as we start moving here, we'll see this showing up. We are not. Why are we not doing that? Because it's on primitives, possibly. Okay, let's just leave that as it is. That should be okay. Let's just see if this is affecting it or not. We should see it in. Yep, let's go to frame. Yep, there we go. So we're seeing our MOPs fall off here. It's changing only because these points are slightly moving. So we do actually want to animate our noise. So let's do this time varying here. And now we'll see that these values are going to really move around. So that's what we want to be doing there. We want to actually animate these. So let's take a look at this. So it looks like we're at 0.6520. So let's do this. Let's take our remap. We'll enable this. We'll say this is to 0.65. And we'll just do the opposite here. We're going to do out as 1 like we were before. And I think we did 0.75. So let's just do that. And let's give this a shot and see what happens. Oh, right. Well, this is just animating our MOPs fall off, right? I'm getting ahead of myself here, but we can see that our fall off value is changing. So this is where this Vellum constraint properties will come in as well. So we can do this here. We can have our MOPs fall off. We could also do, if we wanted to, we could have a plain fall off as well. That's just set. Let's just set this to. Yes, let's undo this. Let's put this in here because we'll kind of slowly ramp this in. So we'll bring a plain fall off in, just, like we were doing before. We're just going to multiply everything by just a standard fall off. And let's set this to be constraints again. That'll set this to constraint geometry and primitives. We can also set these to just go to work on stretch. So that we can do that too. That might give us a little extra benefit here. I don't know why we're not seeing that preview, which is too bad, but all right, so let's now just set that remap here like we were before. So 0.65, 1, and 0.75. Oh, hey, Veronica, welcome to the stream. Started to learn MOPs. Yeah, great. Well, glad to have you. Yeah, hopefully some of these things will be helpful to you. I know we've done a couple other streams as well. So, depending on what it is that you're looking to learn, please, hopefully that'll get you somewhere started. And if you have any questions or thoughts or anything like that, please drop them in chat. Happy to help clarify anything at all that might be confusing here. So we have our noise fall off and our plane fall off here. We're just going to animate this plane fall off like we were before. So let's do that. I'm just going to turn the brain off again, and we'll just start this at a value of 0 because we are going to be multiplying this. So we'll do 0. And let's just give it a second to kind of blend in here, and then we'll go to 1. And there. So now we should have all of our, if I turn this on, I'm just actually going to turn that off for a second so it doesn't try to simulate that. Just want to see the actual values here. So there they are. And they're starting at, oh, interesting. Why are we getting those values there? All right, let me just try this. I'm going to move these around. Let's do it like this. Started at 12. Ended at 36. Cool. All right. All right, let's turn those off then. Just make sure we're not missing something here. Sorry, I think I'm just totally missing something here. Hold on. Just checking these values. Okay. All right. Not sure why that's happening like that, but let's just do the remap here and we'll just animate these values instead. All right, so we can also animate these, or should be able to. So if we set this to be 0 and 0, boom. Set this at 1, 0.75. Those are the two values we were doing before. Let's just check that and see if that works. That should work. We should have. Yep, I'm seeing MOPs fall off there. Yeah, there it is too. Perfect. Yep, that looks like what we want. Great. Then what we can actually do is just adjust this a little as well. Kind of like how we had it before. Okay. Let's put these constraint geometry, this property back on here so that now we're affecting that rest scale. And let's see what happens here. We should have... Ah, there he is. Yes, I can definitely submit that to you later. And I did this the wrong direction. I set it to 0 first. Yes, I definitely can. Message me and let me know where I can actually send that bug to. I'm not sure exactly where you like to get that, but all right, there we go. Now we're getting some actual animation here. And what we might want to do is actually re-enable our gravity here. So if we set this back to default, check this out. There we go. We're getting some weird growing behavior there, and it's just kind of animating, through our mesh, right? So the one real difference here that you want to think about when you're kind of looking at doing something in the dynamics context versus in SOPs is that you can kind of think it almost like working with UVs or something like that, right? Where you have, this mapped image that sits across your geometry, right? And when you modify that changes regardless of where it is. When you modify your images on your UV or whatever, that changes no matter whether this cloth is blowing in the wind or being torn apart or whatever. Those attributes are mapped to that space on the geometry. Whereas when you go inside of the solver like this and you're working with your noise fall off in here, that is within the space of this dynamic simulation. So as these points move in the simulation, that is actually going to change the attribute. It's not depending on where it is fixed in space when it starts, but as it moves through the simulation, those attributes are going to be changing. It's almost like this fabric is kind of flowing through a noise field, right? And as it flows through that, you can see different areas that are pinching and pulling and stuff like that, right? So as these little areas move and pinch and twirl, right? Like it's moving, this field is moving through the cloth as it's kind of, pinching and having velocities introduced to it. And as these constraints are shrinking and growing and things like that. So this is a lot harder to kind of art direct, right? This is an interesting look and an interesting feel to be able to do this kind of stuff on your geometry. However, if you wanted to say, oh, I want this one section to bulge out specifically, or I want this one area to do X, Y, or Z, well, you should probably do that in SOPs because you can very distinctly dial in one section of where this noise is going to be versus across your entire in your dynamics space, in your simulation kind of space. So that's kind of the difference, is that if you want more explicit control, you should probably be doing that with the SOPs modifiers and then bringing those in to the DOPS context. Now, there are places where these fall offs in DOPS are really helpful because maybe you're in the middle of a simulation, you want to introduce something in a certain behavior or a certain direction or something like that. That's where those are so key, because otherwise you don't know where those pieces are going to fall on the ground, right? Or where that fabric is going to get torn up or whatever it might be. So those are things, obviously, to kind of keep in mind. But cool. Hopefully that's all making sense. I know kind of went through a few different things there and actually got stuck a couple times. So hopefully that didn't throw anybody off too much, but hopefully that's all making sense and is all on the up and up. Let me know if something there is confusing or isn't making sense. And Henry, always, you can jump in if I'm totally butchering something. Well, I mean, that's the cool thing about the MOPs tool set is that, I mean, they're HDAs, right? So they're Houdini digital assets that have been, created really intelligently so that they work in a lot of different ways. So, I mean, in a way, MOPs could always have existed. It's just that, it's the work and the thought process that goes behind it that makes it special, right? It is still all just really Houdini. I mean, these little icons and things like that just aren't, well, I can't go inside of that one. Sorry. But like there's stuff going on inside of these that you could go in and take a look at, right? Like these aren't locked assets and things like that, but or at least for the free ones. So you can go in and take a look at what's going on in there and try to understand some of that logic, because it is good to understand what's going on in here. Now, if you're doing stuff quickly and trying to get to a quick result, use the tools. Don't like, why rebuild them or reshape them? But if there's something that's like you need to tweak a little bit from them, it's possible to do that and make your own nodes that would do something that would work in the same concept, but maybe do something completely different. I mean, there's so much that you can do within Houdini. It's such an open kind of sandbox to be able to play with. It's just really nice to be able, like you said, you're spoiled because you have this really nice workflow that's been created for you. And it makes it feel kind of like you're in the old MoGraph tools in C4D or in something like that, but that has a lot more power behind it when you want to break out and do something totally wacky. So that's a really kind of interesting way to look at it, is that MOPs is Houdini. It's just someone taking it and kind of crafting a tool set with these things that exist there already. So, Louis, let's see. What are you saying here? One time I needed to make a balloon simulation with Vellum, but I needed to inflate specific parts of the geometry. Never figured out a way to do that through simulations. I found some solutions, but yes. So I know I walked through a bunch of stuff in Vellum a couple months ago, and I'm like kind of afraid to go back and watch, because I actually think I did something really stupid with that. There is actually a way to be able to modify balloons and things with pressure constraints. And yeah, his MOPs Vellum video is great. I think I actually totally screwed that up, and I might have to go back and revisit that and kind of upload a fix kind of to my stream, because I think I actually missed that there's point attributes that you can set on the geometry itself to be able to control how that works. And the really interesting thing that Henry was walking through in his video, like I said, I watched it before doing this one, just to make sure I was kind of on the same page with him as far as how he was thinking about these things working. And what he was mentioning, and makes perfect sense, I don't know how I missed this, but basically that there's a single pressure constraint that exists for each piece, right, of your geometry. And what that does is that kind of defines the overall kind of pressure for that piece. But you can actually blend in that pressure's, kind of how it's contributing to the simulation by adjusting individual point attributes that's on your Vellum geometry. So really great little example there from Henry. And I think he probably even has example files in the in his MOPs files. I had no idea they were even there myself. Let's see if we go in here. I'll pull them up real quick. They should be wherever you install your MOPs package. So if you go into here, there's an examples folder, and there are a ton of different example files in here that will explain some of these different things. Here's some Vellum constraints. Not sure if that one is in here specifically. It might be in the MOPs Plus examples. Let's see. Yep, Vellum pressure. I bet you it's in here. Hey, Zach, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. So I bet you if you popped open this Vellum pressure, I bet you that is exactly what he did on his tutorial. So yeah, should be good. Take a look. I totally missed that there's all of these in here. I mean, Yeah. Henry actually and I were chatting the other day, and he was like, so have you gone through all the example files? And I was like, I had no idea there were example files because I'm a dum-dum. But so hopefully this will help get the word out there a little bit more as well, that there are tons of example files in here that I'm sure Henry has painstakingly created over the years, and they're really nice. And they're the stuff that you would see on his different, on the documentation and things like that. There's also documentation, so go check that out as well. Let's see, where is that? Sorry, I'll pull that up as well. So if we go to MOPs, that's MOPs Plus, but that's okay. So if we go here and we look at documentation, there should be wiki. Here you go. And there's all different stuff here. So if you wanted to look at object fall off, there we go. Lots of different things in here. And these, I'm pretty sure these are the files that you would get from those example files. So yeah, go check it out. Yeah, this is kind of like the it's kind of like the CG wiki, but for MOPs. So well done, Henry. It's very well put together. All right, cool. So maybe let's look at a slightly different example. Maybe let's do some grains. That might be kind of interesting to do, and we can play around with those. Just thinking if there's anything else that we should do. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just do. Yeah, maybe one of these days. Maybe I should just go through your your example files like I did with the Joy of X stuff. But there's a lot of them. I don't know if I have the time to go through all of them. But thank you very much, Henry. That is very kind words. All right, so this is MOPs. I don't know. I'm having a hard time naming this. I'll call this DOPS Anim, I guess. I don't know. I do upload these, like I said, so if you want to go check these out on the, you can get it on the Discord server. So you can go to HoudiniHangout.com and you can go there. You can, there is a spot. One of the channels is a link to all of the hip files from all of the past streams and stuff like that. So you can go there and download them. I forgot last week's, or the last time I made an example file. So my apologies, but in the future they will be there for the most part. So cool. Yeah, let's do some grains. Let's do let's make a new geometry node here. Let's do okay, let's go in here. And so actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do the thing that I was getting asked about earlier, because we could just do a box of grains, but that's not that interesting. So let's do something a little bit more interesting here. Let's do I'll just say cloth and grains. So this was the question that I got asked today. So what we started with here was a box. I'm going to do a match size. Wish match size came up when you just typed in match, but that's okay. Let's do a 3 on that. So it's like a tall thing like this. And we'll do a planar patch. In the XZ plane, we'll do a size of, I don't know, maybe 4. Something like that. So we've got our planar patch here. Let's transform that. And we'll bring it up like so. Cool. So we'll just say let's call that cloth. There's that. Let's do a Vellum configure cloth. Great, we've got stretch and bend there. I'm not going to do anything overly crazy here. Let's do a Vellum solver. Yep. What? Why did I click there? That made no sense. All right. Actually, I'll just wire this one in like that. Cool. So we've got our cloth sagging down. Let's change a couple things here. I like to calculate. Well, let's do calculate varying. Let's do it maybe like a density of 1, maybe. Give it a little bit more weight. Not sure if that'll rest a little better. I always forget that. I think it just needs a couple sub-steps. Okay, looking good. Let's... Yeah, I guess let's go up a little bit in density. I'm going to also reduce the thickness of this a little bit. Let's do it to like 0.1. You can visualize that there. We don't need a real heavy, thick cloth. All right, cool. Looking pretty good. All right, so now let's do this. Let's take... Let's take this, and I think what I'm actually going to do is start this, maybe do a vellum drape. Like so. Let's do that. And let's leave the time scale at 1. And I'm just going to give this a couple more sub-steps. Freeze at frame 82. Cool. All right. And guess I'll just save that to disk. Load from disk. Cool. So now we should have that drape as the starting point. Just kind of hanging out there. Great. That's what I want. Looking good. So let's take this cloth here. Let's scatter some points on it. Hello? And then sorry, just thinking about how to best do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue some grain points onto this cloth here. So let's do a vellum grain, vellum configure grain, like so. There we go. Bunch of points. It should be good. What I'm going to do is a vellum pack. And a vellum pack over here as well. I'm going to merge those together. I'm going to scale these or transform these up a little bit. So I'm going to add a transform here just because I don't want them to be right on top of it. That's too far. Let's scale these down to 0 to start, but let's do something like, let's do 0.2. Cool. Cool. All right. So we've got these both in here. They're packed together. And then what I'll do is a vellum unpack. And let's do a vellum glue. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take the cloth geometry and use that as... Oh, sorry. No, I don't even need to do that, do I? Oops. Hello, everybody. Sorry, yeah, I was missing the chat. I'm like zoning out here. So is the vellum pack just for the merge? Yeah, because what's happening here is that if I want to create these constraints here, or I'm sorry, these grains, there's no easy way to just do that on, you know, a certain type of, you know, there's not a real good way of doing that from this. Like if I took, let's see here, I don't think if I did this, it's not really gonna do what I want it to. It's not gonna make grains out of that. Can't do it from volume because there's not really a volume there. So what I'm doing is basically doing the scatter and all of that stuff. I guess maybe if I could do it this way, just thinking out loud. What if I could do this? Oops. Now I'm getting messy here. Sorry. No, because that blasts that out of there. So then you'd have to do like, yeah, I think it's easier to just do it this way. But yes, it's mainly just for the merge. That's really kind of the whole point there. But yes, it's to be able to merge these together. And do kind of stuff separately and then bring them back together. So here, let's do this. Let's do a group. We'll call these grains. Make sure that's a point attribute. So now we have grains. And if we come down here, should be able to say points. We're going to select just grains. And now those are going to be creating glue constraints. And I'm going to make a couple there just to kind of lock them to the surface here a little bit. That should be good. Glue constraints. Actually want these to be fairly stiff. So let's just go pretty crazy with those. And okay, so we've got these points that are created on here. Let me just see what their p-scales are. Let's open up our geometry spreadsheet. Points. These have a P scale of 0.05. So they're fairly small. So if we have these like this, let's see. All right, let's throw these into this drape actually, because that should be what we want. So let's just cut these, grab those. This should drape the same way, more or less. So let's just reset the simulation. This Vellum drape node is very similar to running a Vellum solver in the quasi-static mode. I'm just doing it this way just to make it maybe a little bit clearer what it is that I'm doing, where I'm draping this first and then going to do some simulation on it from there. Sure enough, that looks like that worked. We've got our cloth with our points on it. So if we come down here to this solver, we should be passing pretty much the exact same thing through. So now we just have some points that exist in there, right? And the thing that we are doing here is that we oh, that's interesting. We're actually going through that there. Let me just see if that happens if I clear this out. Let's just see what's going on here in real time. Yes, that's pinching a little bit. So yeah, let's loosen up these glue constraints a little bit. Maybe that's too much. Maybe we'll do like 10,000. Interesting. Interesting. Why is that happening? Okay. Well, let's do a couple things here first. So what I want is for these grains to be scaled to 0 to begin with. So let's kind of play around with some stuff here. All right, so we've got them like this. You know what I'm going to do actually? I'm going to increase the resolution of this so that it's not just 4 points like that. I'm going to give it a couple more divisions. Not sure if that'll help or not, but let's give it a shot. Can't hurt. No. Weird. Don't know why that's the case. The one thing I'm going to do after this too is do a copy to points and just do a sphere primitive here so we can see these as well. I'll just do this on smooth shaded. These will only copy to oh yeah, there's all the target points. We're going to do grains, and then let's actually just do a split here instead. Sorry, I know we're not to the MOPs stuff just yet, so my apologies. Let's do this and this. Cool. That should work. We'll do grains here. Invert the selection. Oh, sorry. We don't need to invert the selection. There's the grains. There's the grains and the cloth. Cool. All right, so this is allowing us to kind of see what's going on here. And I think actually the issue that we're running into is that these spheres and this cloth are all kind of on the same plane right now. And so that's causing there to be some weird collisions and stuff like that. So let's scale those all down first. So let's do this. I want this to kind of grow on maybe from the bottom to the top, right? So let's do that with a using a MOPs fall off, and then we'll have that kind of animate in, because all we need to do is animate the P scale of these grains, right? So we can do that pretty easily with MOPs, right? So let's come down here. I'm just gonna move this over. I don't think we're gonna use that actually. So let's do this. What frame are we on here? Let's do this to frame 48, and we'll just leave this as quasi-static. We can do that here through quasi-static. I'll do 48. Cool. Sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place today. I'm sorry. My brain might be a little fried from being up early yesterday. So why am I doing this as a quasi-static? I have this other drape here. I'm just going to use that because that's what I want to do. I want to drape it, then I'll simulate it coming up. And what I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to, let's drag this in here. Set this to be 48. Simulation. Don't want that to keep resimming, please. Come on, stop. It's not listening to me. Here we go. Okay. So let's do this. Let's come up here. Let's do a attribute adjust, not color, float. And we'll just set the P scale to 0 on all of these. So now these don't have any P scale, so they're just going to be kind of invisible, right, to this simulation. So if we drape, cool. So that's just going to be like that. That's going to just pass through. And then if we look at this here, why do we have P scale? Do I need to reset this? Possibly. Okay. Set always. These should be points. We'll call this grains. Okay, there we go. Now we've got our P scale down. Reset that. Not sure why our P scale keeps resetting like that. Maybe it has to be a certain size by default. Interesting. Not sure why our P... what does the split node do? That's a great question. So a split node is kind of like a fancy way of doing... yeah, the particle size on the grain is not resetting for some reason. I don't know why it's doing that because our P scale is set to 0 here. Might be initializing it back to something because it knows that it's grain. So that might be our issue. All right. I'm going to take this out again because I'm pretty sure it's coming in here as 0. Oops. Let me set my attributes here. P scale. Yep, they're all 0. Frame 1, they go to 0.01. Okay, that's what our issue is. Cool. All right, so what the split node does is it's a way to basically, split your geometry in two different streams, right? So what I'm doing is I'm setting the group to be grains. That's outputting it out this first output here. It's going to the copy to points. This is just our points that are coming out on this side of it here. You can see we have 1,000 points. And on this side, we're going to have all of our geometry, our Vellum geometry coming out this way. And then I'm copying these to points, and they're merging back over basically. So we're merging them back together. So basically split is sort of the opposite of a merge, except you can only do two different streams. It's only like a binary yes or no. You obviously can't have multiple splits coming off of it. So sometimes what you'll see people do is do like one split and then copy another one down here and split this one out into a couple more. And then that'll make a few different channels for their data to flow through. Anyways, not sure what's going on there. All right. So yeah, no problem. Welcome. Okay. So here's what we've got going on. For some reason, this is resetting our grains back. I think, oh, interesting. Wonder if that's the problem there. Is that the issue? No. I was going to say, if that was it, that's kind of interesting. Nope. Okay, so that's one of it. Another thing we need to do too, because we're going to be working with grains, is not assume uniform radius. That's good. Cool. All right, so let's just do this up here. Let's just do our kind of our growth over this this cloth, right? So we've got our piece or our p scale attribute being set here, right? But what we could actually do is animate that using using our MOPs nodes. So let's actually just kind of make a new branch that kind of comes out over to the side, or we could just do it in line. It doesn't really matter. So let's do a MOPs fall off. Let's do a maybe let's do a spread fall off. That'll be kind of interesting if I can remember to do this the right way. And actually we're going to set the p scale, so we don't need to use that probably. All right, so we got our spread fall off here. I think that'll work with disconnected points maybe. If we do it in a radius mode, yeah, that's probably good. Let's select our start points. Hello. Interesting. Okay. Nope. That's not what we want. So we're going to do this over grains. Let's see. Can we find some points here? Hey, that's hard to see. Even for me. Let me think. What's the easiest way to do this here? Let's just do the same way we did it before. I think we can do it that way. Just do an add point. We'll move this up. Oops, sorry, add a point there. There we go. Well, what the heck's going on here? All right, so we've got that. I'm just going to put it into point snap mode and just kind of snap it to one of these points in here. Sure, whatever. That should be fine. Let's put this into the point cloud here. Is this giving us an error? Yep, that seems to be working. Preview that fall off. Cool. That looks to be working. Cool. All right, so we've got this growth happening here. Let's add maybe a little bit of noise into that. That should make it a little more interesting. Like that. Cool. All right, so now let's do, let's see, let's just do I always forget the name of some of these, sorry. Modifiers, transform modifier, I think is what we want. This will allow us to adjust the P scale. I believe. All right, let's just animate this here, the spread. So we'll start at 0. We'll start that at like, well, let's see how far in this goes. We'll start that at like 60 frames in. 0. 2, let's see, how far do we want to go with this? Be like there. Oops. Cool. All right, it's looking good. Okay, so, right. I don't want to do it that way. I think what I want to do is do it this way. So we've got this coming in, and what we can actually do is we can do this with a remap attribute. Wait, there are MOPs remap. No. Okay. Yeah, for some reason, it wasn't scaling my P scale, so it's okay. Yep, there we go. So now we can see that this fall off is driving our P scale, right? So we're just remapping it here. So if we do rem. I'm not sure why it wasn't doing it with the... It wasn't working with this. I'm not sure. Just seeing. Okay. Don't know why that's not working. Okay. Might just be me. Probably user error. Okay, so this right now, what it's doing is it's remapping that fall off across all of these points, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to have these grains. They're going to come in here. They're going to start off all being 0 P scale, right? But then they're going to try to set themselves to 1, which isn't what we want them to do. So what we can do then is we can use our MOPs. Why is this giving me an error? Oh, right. Yeah. You're fine. Okay. So what we're going to do is jump inside here. We can use a MOPs fetch attribute. We can have this be running over geometry and points, and we could use any source attribute, right? So what we could do is we could put a null down here, grab our geo. Now we've set that spread fall off to work with P-scale in this case. So what we could do is we could just go in here and say P-scale and P-scale like that. That should work. We're going to be going from that SOP node like this. And let's see if this works. This should definitely work. Well, it should work. We'll see. Should definitely work. Says the guy that's had a bunch of errors today. All right, let's see. Yep. Okay. It is working. Let's reset the viewport. Don't know why that was freaking out. All right. I'm going to just adjust this cloth here because I have a feeling I did something goofy with it. So let's just do that. Okay. Cool. Yikes, what am I doing here? Okay. So what I did was I set the density, reset that. So if I set this up a little bit, I think this, we'll do calculate uniform, and we'll set this to like 1. Okay. Let's try that. There we go. Oh, and I forgot those P-scales are way too big. But it's working. I mean, it's doing what I'm asking it to. It's just absolutely annihilating itself. Yep, too big. Too big. All right. So what I need to do is not have that go so crazy. So the source range is 0 to 1, but I don't want it to go 0 to 1 because these, by default, are 0.05. So let's go to maybe 0.1. We'll do that, sure. Let's just do 0.05, right? We'll watch this output down here. Why is that cloth blue? Just realizing that. What the heck's making that blue? Okay. We're getting somewhere. Why is this cloth blue? What is making it blue? Merge. Glue. Is it that? Maybe it's that. I have literally no idea why that's blue. Interesting. Anyways, so this is working. We're getting it to do something that we're Good gracious. I'm a mess tonight. All right, so we've got it going. It's doing its simulation, right? So it's falling down. We've got and then we've got these spheres kind of growing onto it. Now, what we could do as well is we could use our MOPs nodes, right, to do a whole bunch of different stuff here, right? We could use them to create noise, to be able to kind of adjust the scale of those, right? So there's a bunch of different things that we can kind of do here, right? So let's do that. So if we have these, right, and we have them adjusting. I'm just going to do this, and that way I can kind of see this animation. All right, like that. So maybe what we'll do instead is we'll add some noise, a noise fall off in here as well. And we'll probably put this up here ahead of this and just do this on the, oops, just do this on the grains as well. I wonder if that's what's going on, if it's like some sort of weird visualizer thing that's happening in there. It's really odd. I don't know why that's the case. Do I have a visualizer in here that's doing something? Oh, it's me. Cool. That's why. Hey. Okay, so there's that and that. Okay, so we've got these. So let's do a MOPs noise fall off. Then we'll do this as a multiply. So now this is going to add that into this noise, right? So we're going to scale it up within this noise fall off here. So if we preview the fall off, preview that fall off, we should be able to see that. Okay, so let's adjust this a little bit. Let's tweak this remap, and we can just kind of make some of these a bit bigger. Like that maybe, so that they'll kind of bump into each other as they get bigger. Like so, cool. Let's maybe noise that up a little bit more. Maybe do a bit more of a width here to it. Add a bit more like higher frequency noise. Cool. And then we're probably going to want to spread this out a little bit more too. So we're going to add, okay, I guess maybe not. I was thinking that we needed to spread a little bit further to make those animate, but it doesn't seem like we do. So that's good. All right, so we can, yeah, that's trying to simulate. Turn off these fall off previews. And now let's see if we can see what this looks like. Oh, weird. There's like two little ones there. I must have not noticed that those were not animating properly. Cool. So that is, you know, kind of doing what we were hoping it would do, I think. What we could also do is adjust this spread fall off a little bit here so that it's maybe like starts at 40. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, I want to see why that is like that. Spread fall off. Got a couple little stragglers here. Okay, 0.5. Let's just maybe refit this a little bit. Should be in multiply. Maybe we want to clamp it. That might do it. Let's see. Nope. Oh, I bet you it's the noise. Is it the noise? Let me see. No. It's really strange. know why it's doing that. These numbers are just probably not doing what I wanted to do. That's what I want. Okay, I don't need to keep switching that back and forth. Can just use that as a preview fall off, and that should display as spheres. Maybe? There we go. I see. It wasn't cool. Man, my viewport is like freaking out tonight. Had to reset it a couple times. All right, enough. Thank you. Okay. Oh, this is the... Sorry, my brain is not working well today. That's the cloth underneath. I need to just do a blast. Grains. There we go. Not sure where that's coming from. Anyways, well, we'll just have to leave it. I'm not gonna overly freak out about that. I think we should be good. All right, so we've got some fall offs going here, which is cool. Oh, why wasn't there any MOPs Monday last week? Because I was out of town. I was enjoying some time away with my family. So yeah, there was no MOPs Monday because of that. All right, so let's now do this. Let's take this simulation and let's actually have these spheres fall off of the cloth. Let's do that because we have them glued on there, right? So let's do that. We'll get this out of here. So it falls down. The spheres grow up like little weird, simulation thing. I don't know, whatever. Strange. Let's go inside of the Vellum solver and let's do a couple more things here. So got that working. That animates all those up. Bloop. You can see them there, even though we're not seeing the visualization of the spheres or whatever. Let's now add a MOPs shape fall off. I'm going to do this as a linear fall off. We're going to rotate it. I want to say this direction. 90 degrees, like so. Let's go back here. Oh, turn off the snapping. Let's do MOPs fall off. Is that the first mop of this project? No. No, we're doing a few other things here. So we've done quite a few other ones here where we're doing Vellum solver stuff, and we've done a bunch of stuff in here with noise fall offs and the Vellum solver and fetch attributes and things like that. No, definitely not. This one just has been a little bit more getting the actual setup going. So unfortunately that one took a little longer, but yeah, so mop shape fall off here. We're going to use this to, once this simulates down, let's see here. No problems. No worries. Yeah, this one has been this example has been a little light on it, but we're going to get into it a little bit more right now. So I want it to be the other direction, I think. So let's just rotate this -90. I always pick the exact wrong direction. So let's see here. Cool. All right, so then let's scale it and next this axis. We'll let it sit like this for a second. It's going to fall down. Like so. And from there, we're going to move this fall off down. So let's turn the brain off. Translate. Actually, you know what? Sorry, we're going to do it from like 72 to like 96. Because actually those spheres can inflate a little earlier. They can do 36 to 72. All right, so here's our spread fall off. Let's just animate this a little earlier. Do it to 36. Like that. Turn our dynamics back on. Okay, cool. That's working. And then what we're going to do in here is we're going to, instead of initializing this on our geometry, we're going to initialize this on our constraints. Because what we want to do is we want to take our constraint geometry that's gluing these together. We want to take that and use that as as what we're going to get rid of, right? So here's our glue. Let's turn an output group here and we'll just call this glue. All right, so there's our output group. We can run this just on glue. And then what we can do is, I want to say that we could do this with, okay, I'm trying to remember exactly how this works, but breaking threshold, we'll just say like 100,000 so it doesn't break. And then I believe there is we can put this into a broken group possibly, and that will remove them, I want to say. So we have our fall off here, and what we can do then is just do a, let's see. Can do a Vellum constraint properties again. Okay, this is what we want. Remove, set to 1. And so we're going to put this into group glue. And we're going to just do another expression here. And what we can do is this remove will be When this is set to 1, it will remove it, right? So what we could do here is we could just use our, where is it here? Our MOPs fall off. Oh yeah, right. Frame 2, it'll come on. So as we'll play through this, we'll see that the MOPs fall off is going to go to up to 1. So right now it's at 0, right? So right now remove would be 0 if we're setting it equal to our MOPs fall off. And then as this animates up, we should see that our MOPs fall off will go to 1 for all of them. Right there, you start to see them translate through. And why did it not update? Constraint geometry and glue. What did it do here? Not sure why that didn't set. Let's try this again. Okay. Oh, I see why. Because it was resetting those to be... Yep. There's the MOPs fall off at 1. It was only working on the glue ones, so they were just in the wrong spot in the geometry spreadsheet, which is really annoying. Probably could just do glue here. Yep. And that would only show the glue ones. And now when it comes down, there they are. Okay. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to set, so what we'll do is we'll do remove equals, and we'll do at MOPs fall off. Now, obviously that's a float value and we need this to be an integer, but it should round it. What I could do is just say RINT like this, which rounds it to the nearest integer. And give that a shot, see if that helps us at all. So let's see here. So what we're going to do is instead, let's look at remove. We'll hit play. Oh, right. It's not actually going to, right. Sorry. It's not going to actually make an attribute. It's a pseudo attribute. Pseudo property. There we go. It is working. Hooray. All right, let's go back up here so we can actually see what's happening a little bit better. What I can also do is merge this in as well. Just do that. So we've got our collision geometry. Oh, weird. That's weird looking geometry. If I do a normal here, does that help us out? Yeah, that looks better. That looked really weird. All right, so our cloth is going to fall down like so. Spheres are going to animate up. And then we're going to now animate this down from the top. And they're just going to come off and kind of slide down and fall off to the ground. Oh, I don't have a ground set up. That would probably be better. All right, ground position. There we go. So, yeah, so Jack, you're asking, so fall offs are like setting start and end values of something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're working with some scale values. you know, doing things like that. There was in the last one we were adjusting cloth rest length. And so that's another thing that we were tweaking with it. But yeah, a fall off is just, these fall offs are just kind of like, are just kind of in what you would expect from working with like, what's the word? Working with the MoGraph stuff in C4D. They're very similar to kind of how those fall offs work. They're very similar setups to what that is. So in this case here, we have a fall off that is driving these points, kind of inflating their shape or whatever, you know, so we're getting that. And then let's do this smooth wire shaded maybe. So then these spheres are all kind of getting bigger here and doing their thing. And then we're bringing that fall off from the top. Some of those have a little bit of stress induced in them, so they're kind of getting pulled or whatever. But here now those grains are going to fall to the ground, and they're not going to be part of that cloth anymore. And, you know, maybe that's a little too fast. Maybe we want to slow that down a little bit. We certainly could. With this shape fall off. So this is where this really becomes super handy, because you could look at this and say, okay, yeah, that's a little too quick. Like we're going all the way to the ground there. We don't really want to go that far. Maybe at this last keyframe here, all we need to do is really have it set to about maybe like there. And we'll move this last keyframe to be at like 112 or something. I don't know. So now if we do this, we should have a little bit of a slower, you know, time between those two. And just to remember too, that something like that remove attribute is actually a binary, right? So it's a 0 or a 1. So basically once we get past 50% on that fall off, it's deleted. Basically, can't like slowly delete something. It's either there or it isn't. So hopefully here we'll see a little bit more, of this effect actually kind of slowly ramping down this cloth. So that's, you know, we've got that interaction there. But maybe instead what we'd want to do is, oh, you know what? I think I have some velocity damping on here too, don't I? No, I don't. Oh, I have probably the wind drag is probably what's doing that. Okay, so we've got that, but what we could do instead is we could take this shape fall off, and instead of doing it top to bottom, I'm going to turn off this. So instead of doing it top to bottom, we could take it and we could, let's see, that's 0. So let's do this. We'll move it down here. Just want to make sure I'm not going to delete them when they're up in the air there. Oh, I can activate this too. That's right. So why don't I just do that? I'll bring this over here, roughly. And I'm going to animate the activation as well. And this should be 0. Cool. Then when we get to the end here, let's actually delete that channel. And then we'll just move this across like so. Animate that, and that should just go across. So now, if we take a look at this, I think we will have a different effect to see. The other thing too, obviously, is that this is a pretty low resolution cloth. You might want to do it at a little higher resolution, or you could do a little post-processing as well. So now this should fall off going left to right from this view, I think. There we go. So that's a little different look. So you could do this obviously a whole bunch of different ways and kind of play around with this. Somebody asked me a little bit about this and how you might go about doing this. And so this is just kind of my rough attempt at kind of playing around with it. The other thing you could do as well is do a Vellum post process. I think you could do that. Well, let's just plug it in here and see how this works for us. Do a detangle, maybe one level of subdivision. No, not that. We want to do a loop. Wow. That's a mess. Guess we don't want to detangle. There we go. No, let's do the loop. What we'll do instead is we'll just maybe do this. Nope. Okay. And then if we look at this here at the end, we'll see that we have even a little bit maybe nicer cloth, you know, a little bit smoother looking cloth. Obviously, the higher you simulate that, the better it's going to look. You know, you could add in another subdivision if you wanted to, but you know, you're really just kind of blurring a not great sim. So yeah, so that's kind of the look of what it is that we are able to do with this. So hopefully that's kind of interesting for you guys. I know it's sort of it was a little bit of a fumbly thing to get through all of these to build this all live. Hopefully it's at least sort of interesting to have seen it. Just an idea that I had, and, you know, hopefully seeing kind of all of these different ways of working with Vellum, will kind of, you know, pique some of your interest and hopefully get you, you know, kind of excited about what you could do with MOPs, how you can, you know, animate with it, do different effects and things like that. You know, there really is just so much that you can do with being able to animate your constraints like this. It's pretty neat. So, you know, there's lots of different stuff that we were able to kind of do here tonight. So, I think it's pretty fun. That's like a kind of weird animated version there too. So, yeah, I think unless anybody has any questions, I think we're kind of going to wrap up here. It's been a couple hours for me now, and yeah, I guess after yesterday, my brain is not working as well as I would have hoped it would be. So, you know, here we are. But if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything at all, please drop it in the chat and we can kind of talk through it. And if not, we'll wrap things up in a minute here. How many more MOPS Mondays are we going to have? That's a great question. It kind of depends on, you know, how many, all of them. Yeah, I think for right now, so I think, just to kind of be clear with my, thoughts, I think what I'm going to be doing, this is always weird when I do this. Stream's on right now. Okay, let's not see myself. So as of right now, I have it planned to go into October, and there's a big break in there because I'm actually going to be in the UK at the end of October. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to go up to there for sure in the next couple weeks, have MOPS Mondays. And then we'll kind of reevaluate where we're at that point. I mean, the more things that you guys, the more questions that you all have, and the more, you know, suggestions that you might have for things with MOPs that you throw into the Discord server, you know, the better it's going to be, and the kind of more that I can do with this. I don't want to just rehash everything that Henry's done on his tutorials and stuff like that. That's kind of fruitless for everyone. So the more that we can, the more ideas that you guys have, or any thoughts or anything like that, that'll just allow us to be able to go even further with it. Like, I will be out of town. Let's see, when's the first one that I'd be able to do in October after I get back? I'm literally gone for like 2 weeks, so it's a bit of a long one. Yeah, the first one I would be able to do would be the first Monday in November after I get back. So, oh, you know what? No, there's a couple more that we can throw in there. So, yeah, there's one more maybe that we could throw in there. So we'll see. It's the day before my trip, but I don't leave till the evening, so it's not like I'm going to be tired or anything. So, yeah, we'll look at that. But no, I know these have been cool for me too. I've been really enjoying them. So, let's just do this right now while we're here. We'll do it like so. Oh, nope, that's not right. Repeats weekly custom. I'll probably break this right now, but that's okay. We'll give it a shot. Let's see. Did I break everything? Let's see here. Hey, there we go. So if I refresh this, we should see that. Hey, there's another one in there. So we can squeeze another one in. So yeah, there are plenty of MOPs Mondays coming. So yeah, I'm really excited. Like I was saying, I've got a trip to go visit some family in the UK, and also visit some schools in the UK. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. Some of my family's from the UK, so being able to go see them, go see some schools overseas is going to be really great. Yeah, that should be cool. Yeah. Terry, I saw that you said that yesterday's stream was great. I'm very glad that everybody enjoyed it. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, please do. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I'll throw another one in there, I think, before we head out on our little trip. But yeah, so that is I think where we'll end it for the evening. Thank you guys all for joining, and yeah, keep the ideas coming. If there's something you'd like to see me tackle, or an idea to kind of spark something for these, throw it into the Discord server. That's going to be the best place for me to be able to see kind of what people are interested in. If you have questions or are running into any problems with these examples that I'm doing, or with anything that I've ever really done, you can always come into the, if you're playing around with my files or whatever, and you're like, hey, this doesn't make any sense, or why did you do this? I mean, hopefully I explained it okay on the stream, but if not, I'm always happy to give a little, there's some help stuff in the Discord server that you can drop questions there. And yeah, I'm always trying to keep a decently close eye on that. Sometimes on the weekends, I'm a little slower to respond if, whatever, I've got stuff going on. But yeah, so thank you guys all for joining. And there will be a regular Houdini Hangout on Wednesday, and we'll see what that's going to bring. I've got some suggestions in the Discord that I think I might take a look at for that, and try to do something a little different than all this Vellum stuff that we've been doing, and MOPs. So, but other than that, that should do it for this evening. Thank you all for joining, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye, everybody.